Building the Church, the Start of Blessings. Main Scripture. Haggai chapter 2 verses 18 to 19. From this day on, from this 24th day of the 9th month, give careful thought to the day when the foundation of the Lord's temple was laid. Give careful thought. Is there yet any seed left in the barn? Until now the vine and the fig tree, the pomegranate, and the olive tree have not borne fruit. From this day on I will bless you. The Israelites' Idolatry. After making the covenant, the first instruction that God provided to the Israelites was to build a sanctuary for Him to dwell. Exodus chapter 25 verse 8. However, rather than using it for the sanctuary, they built a golden calf and idolized it as a god who led them out of Egypt. Exodus chapter 32 verse 1. Moses' Intercession. Exodus chapter 32 verse 13. Remember your servants Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, to whom you swore by your own self, I will make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky, and I will give your descendants all this land I promised them, and it will be their inheritance forever. God's wrath was so intense that He was determined to completely destroy the entire nation of Israel. Exodus chapter 32 verse 10. Moses earnestly interceded with God, recalling the covenant God had made with their forefathers to grant the land of Canaan as an inheritance to their descendants, the Israelites. Exodus chapter 32 verses 11 to 13. Moses' act of interceding with God teaches a crucial lesson. God is the God of covenant. He is unwaveringly dedicated to fulfilling the covenant He establishes. Moved by Moses' plea, God reconsidered His decision. Exodus chapter 32 verse 14. As Moses descended the mountain, he witnessed the Israelites engaging in idolatry. Exodus chapter 32 verse 19. Aaron's failure as the leader. Moses rebuked Aaron, holding him responsible for leading the people into such a grievous sin. Exodus chapter 32 verses 21 and 25. Aaron, instead of fearing God, was swayed by his fear of the people, which led him to guide them into committing this great sin. Remade 2 stone tablets. God subsequently instructed Moses to guide the Israelites toward the land of Canaan. However, He declared that He would not accompany them on this journey. Exodus chapter 33 verse 3. Why? The reason for this was His concern that out of His anger He might destroy them on the way. In response to this news, the Israelites mourned and stripped off their ornaments at Mount Horeb. Exodus chapter 33 verse 6. God then commanded Moses to carve 2 stone tablets, on which he would inscribe the words that were on the first tablets that Moses had broken. Exodus chapter 34 verse 1. Reiterated instruction on church construction. Subsequently, God revisited the initial commandment He had given to the Israelites, which was to construct a sanctuary. Following the creation of the new stone tablets, He reiterated the directive to build His sanctuary. This time, having learned from their previous sin with the golden calf idolatry, the Israelites freely and willingly contributed their possessions for the construction of God's sanctuary. Exodus chapter 35 verse 29. Exodus chapter 36 verse 3. They received from Moses all the offerings the Israelites had brought to carry out the work of constructing the sanctuary, and the people continued to bring freewill offerings morning after morning. Exodus chapter 36 verse 5. And said to Moses, the people are bringing more than enough for doing the work the Lord commanded to be done. Exodus chapter 36 verse 7. Because what they already had was more than enough to do all the work. When the Ark of the Covenant was placed in the sanctuary, the glory of God filled the tabernacle. Exodus chapter 40, verse 34. The same phenomenon happened when Solomon finished building the temple of God. Haggai, restarting the suspended rebuilding of God's temple. On the other hand, halting the construction of the temple is an action that displeases God. This is clearly manifested in the book of Haggai. While the temple of the Lord remained a ruin, the Jewish people lived in paneled houses. Haggai chapter 1 verse 4. What was the consequence of their neglect of God's temple? God ensured that they would not labor in vain, failing to gain earnings from their work. Haggai chapter 1 verses 5 to 6. Haggai chapter 1 verse 9. You expected much, but see, it turned out to be little. What you brought home I blew away. Why? Declares the Lord Almighty. Because of my house, which remains a ruin, while each of you is busy with his own house. Consequently, the prophet Haggai urged the Jewish people to participate in the reconstruction of God's temple. Haggai chapter 1 verses 12 to 13. The Lord stirred up the spirit of the whole remnant of the people, prompting them to commence work on the house of the Lord Almighty their God. Haggai chapter 1 verse 14. Their suffering was a consequence of not persisting with the temple's reconstruction. Once they resumed rebuilding, God instructed them to note the commencement date of this renewed effort. From that day forward, he promised them blessings. Haggai chapter 2 verses 18 to 19. Conclusion. We should introspect to determine which category we fall into. Number 1. Those who utilize their wealth to chase their personal idols. Number 2. Those who cease participating in the construction of the temple. Number 3. Those who joyfully and willingly offer their possessions to the building of God's temple.